Within the next few minutes, a major crime will be committed somewhere in the United States. Before this program is off the air, a criminal will have struck and vanished, having accomplished a perfect crime. But is it? From his files, the Man in Black brings you another story of a crime that was almost perfect, of a criminal who made only one mistake.
Good evening. This is the Man in Black. A year ago tonight, an innocent man was murdered in a small New England village. He was murdered by Clyde Ross. Listen to what happened in Clyde's own words as he told it to me, just before he was executed. I was going to murder a man, and the whole idea of it felt good. Right then, as I walked across the village square toward the church, I knew I was going to murder him. It was going to be so easy, simple and easy. A couple of little things left to do, and that was all. Then the church bell started ringing. I looked up at the steeple. Even at night, you could see the belfry clear enough. I could even see the bell banging first one way, then the other. The only thing I couldn't see was him, Edgar Branson. He was the sexton. Big deal. Dig a few graves, keep the old church cemetery looking homey, and ring the bell. That was old man Branson. That was his whole life. That was the guy I was going to kill. Not tonight. Later. A week or so, maybe. I went inside the church through the vestibule, down the long, dark hall that led to Father Vincent's quarters. When Father Vincent answered my knock, I looked worried. That was part of my plan. Right away, he wanted to know what was wrong, so I told him. I was worried about old Branson. He was too old to be climbing the tower, that maybe he'd slip someday and have a bad fall down the stairs, that he might even fall out of the belfry. Oh, I played it big, like a son being worried about his father. And Father Vincent went right along with it, as I knew he would. I remember just how he said it. "We cannot retire old Edgar as sexton, my son. Next to you, this is his whole life. To take it from him now, to say to him his usefulness is gone, would be a grievous wrong, my son. Perhaps a fatal wrong." Yeah, sure. Sure, I told Father Vincent. Sure, he was so right. Boy, both of us were pretty choked up by the time I left. I walked old man Branson home. You see, I lived with him. Why not? I wasn't blessed with a family. Besides, old man Branson was loaded. Saved all kinds of money and no one to leave it to. His wife had died 5 years ago. After a year or so of me buttering the old boy up, it was all fixed legally. I'd inherit the whole load when the sexton croaked. Well, let me tell you, I earned it. Brother, how I earned it. Playing nursemaid to an old goof you can't stand the sight of. All the time, acting like he's doing you a big favor, taking you off the streets. You think that's easy? And what's worse, I'd given him something to live for. Everyone said so. Something to live for. Great. And all I ever wanted was to give him something to die for. Old goof. Well, once I knew I was going to kill him, the pressure was off. All I needed was a good plan. A simple one, you know. And a Class A bona fide witness that said I was somewhere else when it happened. A simple plan. Old Branson was going to fall out of the church belfry. He was going to fall out. Yeah. Because I was going to push him. You see, I started the pattern a few months ahead of time. Every Thursday night, I'd drive to Bedford, about 10 miles away, to go to a movie. Got so I was driving past Henry Freckleton's hamburger stand at the edge of town at the same time every Thursday night. Henry'd wave me out of town, and a couple of hours later I'd honk and he'd wave me back into town. Henry, Father Vincent, and old man Branson, they all knew where I went every Thursday night. Except that once or twice I didn't go to Bedford at all. Oh, I drove past Henry's all right. A few miles out on the Bedford Road. Then I'd circle back on a dinky little wagon road that led to the woods behind the church. I found out I could hide my car there and enter the church belfry unnoticed. After a while, it would be simple to complete the circle and pass Henry's again as I came back into town. Yeah, and it work, too, like a charm. Not a hitch anywhere. Henry weighs me out of town on schedule. I didn't even pass a car on the old wagon road, and the woods were as quiet as a tomb when I went through them. I was silently climbing the narrow, twisting steps to the belfry, and old Branson had just begun to pull the bell when he saw me, and he smiled at me like I was his son. I smiled back. When he pulled the bell for the last time, I moved on him quick and threw him over the side. Fell to his death without a word. It seemed right somehow that he pitched right into the cemetery at the side of the church. Afterwards, I never heard it so quiet. All the way back through the woods to the car, it was as quiet as death. And I was right on time for Henry's wave when I drove back into town, too. I knew then the circle was complete. The crime was perfect.
Clyde Ross finished his story and said no more. The end is well known. 2 short days later, Clyde was arrested for the murder of the old sexton. Where had he made his mistake? What thin web of circumstance became the cord about his neck? As in the case of most perfect crimes, Clyde turned out to be his own hangman. If he had not told Father Vincent of his concern for the sexton's safety, he might well have lived to inherit the old man's wealth. But because he told his story so convincingly, the good father took the problem to the sexton himself. And old Brandon, touched by Clyde's obvious love for him, devised a signal to assure Father Vincent that all was well. He rang the church bell 4 extra times to signify that he was not in danger, that Clyde was there.
The Man in Black has brought you from his files another case history of a criminal who attempted to commit the perfect crime. This is the CBS Radio Network.